All right, so just about an hour ago, Godot posted that they have their community poll out for 2023. If you're new, this happens once a year, and it's just to ask everyone how they're using Godot, how they like the management of Godot, and where you want it to go in the future. And there's some really interesting things that they're asking on this poll this year. So there's the general demographics information. We've got information on when did you first hear of it, when did you start using it, what's your experience, and how do you use it, where you're making your money, how do you feel about networking, and if you plan on implementing it in a certain way, teams and version control. But what's especially interesting is they're asking about ray tracing and the kinds of graphics processors people have. And I know I've heard in the pipeline that they might be considering making a ray tracing engine, so I'm interested to see where that goes, if that is tacked onto the existing Vulkan renderer, or if that'll be a new renderer option that'll be exclusively for super high-end ray tracing compatible graphics cards. They're looking to see what versions people are using, because some people are in the older versions. I'm interested to see how many people are still using version 2. But me personally, I stick with 4.1. They're asking about programming languages, including extension-based languages. So, for example, you can use C++, Rust, or Nim if you're using GD extension or GD native, and just more about how those are being used. And then another interesting question, which I believe was at least on last year's, was what communities do you interact with? So where are you seeing stuff? I do find it interesting that they posted it on Mastodon here, on their mastodon.gamedev.place. But Mastodon, Fediverse, Calki are not listed. So when I did the form, I put in as other. I know there's a Lemmy community as well for Godot. So maybe next year they'll add that into the options. Contributing to source code and community support. And I like how they're asking about the asset library, because personally, I never use the asset library, at least not on serious projects. I prefer to use Git submodules, or I'll be downloading asset packs from itch.io because they're more general and I really don't need something specifically for Godot. I just need GLTF models or even OBJ models. They're asking about satisfaction with different things. I really like that they ask about this, because this is really important. I know I've heard some discussions on accessibility, so I'm interested to see what the results come out there. And now we're looking at stuff for the Godot Foundation, which is how Godot is funded. If I remember correctly, it's a nonprofit organization that takes in the money that can be sent over to developers to compensate them for working on the engine or anything else that Godot needs as an organization. If you're familiar with other open source projects, Blender Foundation, very similar. And so they're asking, how comfortable are you with different funding sources? So, they might be having company sponsors or maybe government subsidies. The official merchandise is very interesting. I think that would be super cool to have an official Godot merchandise store. I'm not entirely sure how that would be implemented, but I think it would be super fun, and I would love to own some official Godot merchandise, especially if I know that it's going back to fund the project. And then I'm also asking about different areas of growth, and so they're not just doing engine development. They've got their asset store, there's potentially a merchandise store to work with, there's community management and education, it's advocacy and outreach, which I might be misinterpreting. To me, that sounds like spreading the news about Godot to people. And then they're very specifically asking about strategic partnerships with companies in the ecosystem. So accepting donations that are directed to specific features or areas, which plenty of possibilities for that. That could mean that there are some companies, like it could just be an Epic Mega Grant, or it could be specific companies that want to fund development in certain key areas, maybe so they can use Godot as their in-house engine. So who knows? I think that'd be interesting. I think it'd be really cool in one way if corporations that use Godot or want to use Godot could help fund certain features that are lacking, that are the reason they don't want to switch to Godot. I think it could be a wave that kind of rises all the ships. So I think it'd be good for everyone. But of course, I personally think that being selective would be a good idea, but I'm hoping to see what the results are here.